Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me today in the Locher Room. I'm Alan Locher. Sunday is Rare Disease Day, which takes place on the last day of February each year. The goal of Rare Disease Day is to raise awareness amongst the general public and decision makers about their impact on patients' lives. Today we are, sorry, I'm having trouble reading off the prompter, so forgive me. Today, we're going to raise awareness for pediatric hydrocephalus, which is a condition which the primary characteristic is excessive accumulation of fluid in the brain. Although hydrocephalus was once known as water on the brain, the water is actually cerebrospinal fluid, a clear fluid that surrounds the brain and spinal cord. The excessive accumulation of this fluid results in abnormal widening of spaces in the brain called ventricles. This widening creates potentially harmful pressure on the tissues of the brain. Hydrocephalus is a rare condition that is only treatable through brain surgery and is the #1 reason for pediatric brain surgery. I hope you'll consider making a donation today to the Pediatric Hydrocephalus Foundation to help raise money for funding research projects, to help find a cure, and to help find better treatment options for hydrocephalus. The only treatment right now is brain surgery, and the medical device used, which is called a shunt and has the highest failure of any medical device on the market. Hydrocephalus is the #1 reason for pediatric brain surgery in our country, and on average of 40,000 shunt operations are performed each year. The lack of advancements in treatment for this disease have left many diagnosed with hydrocephalus unable to lead full and productive lives. Today, you will meet two very brave young survivors of hydrocephalus along with their parents to learn more about this rare lifelong condition that affects over 1 million Americans, from newborns to seniors. Michael Illions, a daytime soap fan and the father of 15-year-old Cole, emailed me back in November about his son, who is a 13-time brain surgery survivor. Let that sink in. I wanted to help Cole and his parents, Michael and Kim, raise awareness and funds for this disease. So please welcome to the Locher Room. It is my pleasure to have Michael, Kim, and Cole here with me today. Hi there.
Hello, Alan. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here. Sorry for the, I try to use a teleprompter and it doesn't always work.
Oh, that's okay. I won't feel so bad if I make any stumbles myself now.
Okay. How's the family doing? How are you doing? Give me a thumbs up. That's great. So tell me, how's the family doing right now?
We're doing okay. Cole's doing very well. So Cole's 15, as you mentioned, and in the first 9 years of his life, he's had the first 4 years of his life, he's had the 13 brain surgeries. So he has
First 4 years.
Yes, first 4 years of his life, he's had all 13 brain surgeries. And he's now going on 11 years surgery-free, which is great. But with hydrocephalus comes developmental delays, and Cole is nonverbal, which is not something that is common. There is all different range of developmental delays for children and adults with hydrocephalus. One of Cole's is that he is nonverbal, but he is doing very well in school. He goes to a special needs school. He has a very advanced, or at least age-appropriate reading level. He's great with basic math, and he is great on the computer and the tablet. He has 5 tablets that he rotates through daily as he plays all his games and watches TV and a lot of YouTube programming. Now we got to get him to watch the Locher Room.
There we go. Can you take us back to finding out? Because I was surprised you found out before he was born.
Yes, and it was a shock to us, obviously. When you go to get your trimester screenings, you don't expect to hear bad news, nor to even think about that going into the meeting, but to the appointment. But that's what happened at our second trimester screening. Being in the room where they were doing an ultrasound, the nurse left the room suddenly and came back with like 3 other people, and they were all mumbling and talking, slow, and had to sit down with us and tell us that they saw issues with the brain, that they couldn't see the brain, and that it was blocked with fluid, which is hydrocephalus, and that Cole was going to have a life filled with issues and and surgeries, and we had to prepare for that at that time.
Which I can't imagine for both of you, hearing that has got to be one of.
It was. It took us quite some time to find a pediatric neurosurgeon. As the saying goes in our community, pediatric neurosurgeons don't grow on trees. It is not an easy search to find one, and to find one that you're comfortable with, and choose that person to save your child's life.
So you get this from the ultrasound from the OBGYN. Does the OBGYN recommend you finding a pediatric surgeon?
Well, this is not the place to get into it, but that's not the only thing they recommended, which we chose something differently. And we on our own tried to research, and I guess we'll get into why there is a Pediatric Hydrocephalus Foundation in the first place. But we tried to research the issue and didn't have a lot of luck finding anything out there on the internet, and kind of was on our own to go through this. I didn't know anybody that had a child with hydrocephalus. Kim is an LPN and was at that time, and knew very little about hydrocephalus. I had never even heard of it. And
until you emailed me.
Yep. And at that point, we were on the search for a pediatric neurosurgeon. And luckily, we found someone we were comfortable with, and that one doctor performed all 13 of Cole's brain surgeries.
Wow.
Over a 4-year period. We became quite friendly with them.
And the hospital, I'm sure.
And the hospital and nurses, and the staff knew us by name, and everybody knows who Cole is. He's also very popular in town here in Woodbridge, New Jersey. We became so close with some of the staff that was taking care of Cole at the hospital during those 4 years that we went to each other's child's birthdays. Wow. That's how close we were. So
you're not far from me. You're not far from me. The question, how dangerous are the surgeries?
Well, it's brain surgery, so it is a danger for sure.
No matter what.
No matter what. They say that brain shunt surgeries are the most common and the most easiest of brain surgeries, but you're still in the brain, and you're still going in, opening up, and the risk of infection is very serious as well. And then the risk of an issue is also equally as serious, that there can be long-term problems with the patient.
Wow. I've put up the link to hydrokids.org. So anybody watching today, please, to help fund research, to help find a cure, all of the above. So in essence, not finding the research online, is that what prompted you to create your foundation, the Pediatric Hydrocephalus Foundation?
So we were, dealing with Cole's issues for the first 4 years and didn't really think about how to help the community at that time. Obviously, we're dealing with Cole's 13 surgeries. If you go over the time, he was in the hospital almost every other month for the first 4 years of his life, which is what it averages out to. And after that, we had some stability, and we realized that there was what we went through, other families are probably going through it. And we decided to start the Pediatric Hydrocephalus Foundation to help other families deal with this. We had known other families from being involved, raising money for other organizations. There's not many hydrocephalus organizations, and there was none that catered just to pediatrics. And that's where the idea was born from. So we took a look at some of the people we knew and asked 3 families to join us from New Jersey. And we formed the Pediatric Hydrocephalus Foundation in 2009, just in New Jersey. Now, fast forward 11 years later, almost 12 years later, and we have over 25 state chapters. We are a volunteer-driven organization, and that's what we do. We help the community with referrals and an ear to talk to and a shoulder to cry on. Again, we give them a lot of referrals for neurosurgeons and hospitals to go to, support. And of course, we raise money strictly for funding research projects, which is sorely lacking.
Kim, have you found this helpful, having the 25 chapters and other people to, really?
100%. Well, because we're all our state chapter directors are moms of a child with hydrocephalus. So, I am a nurse, but if you take the medical side out of it, I'm a mom first. And so together as a group, we get to lean on each other, ask each other questions. Hey, does your kid do this? My kid's doing that. So yeah, I found it very helpful.
Well, and I mean, they must owe you guys a lot for really starting this.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. I think so.
Yeah, I mean, we all look to the internet. We all look to the internet for explanations on so many things, and when it's your children and you can't find it, and now you've created a place where people can go for information and to raise money and all of the above. Something good can come out of sadly what Cole has had to go through all this time.
This is therapy for us, because what else are we going to do? This was a way to deal with this by helping other people when we didn't have the help. Some of the things that we have done, I believe in my heart 100% that we've literally saved lives of children who were yet to be born and children after they were born, with people coming to us for help and guidance. We've worked with Congress. We're the organization that established a National Hydrocephalus Awareness Month, which is in September of every year, which there was none before 2009 when we became the PHF, and that was the first task we undertook, was having Congress establish National Hydrocephalus Awareness Month. We also worked with Congress and established a caucus dealing with hydrocephalus, the Congressional Pediatric and Adult Hydrocephalus Caucus, that has like-minded members who support the community, and we have a place to go to when there's something we need to address for our community, members of that caucus in Congress. And we also hold a yearly, obviously with COVID, we haven't last year and won't be doing it again this year, but for the last 11 years, we've held a national conference in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, for hydrocephalus and their families, and we do not charge them. Our corporate sponsors allow us to have these families come for free. They just need to get there and stay there, but there's no registration fee. There's no money needed for food. We provide bus service from the hotel to the Capitol to meet with their elected officials. We set up the meetings, and then we have a networking opportunity for all these families from around the country to meet other families.
Wow. Terrell from Michigan is watching right now. He was born with hydrocephalus.
Hi, Terrell.
Has had 31 brain surgeries and 2 intestinal bypasses due to the shunt infection. The shunt, you said, is the device that can fail the most. How would you detect a failure or an infection? Kim, can you move a little closer to Michael? I think the mic isn't picking you up as well. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. The most common thing with a failure would be in a small child, they would become very cranky. They may stop eating. They would be vomiting, very lethargic, headaches, just a change in their overall personality. For Cole, he never exhibited any of that. He just was having trouble one day just holding his head up straight. And for him, that was his sign that he was having trouble with his shunt. It's really different for everyone. An infection, you would definitely have different signs, but an infection's an infection. So you would have a fever, you would probably be vomiting, you would be very sick. You would know something is going on.
How large is the shunt?
They're all different, but depending on which one you have, it's probably not even, it's like an inch.
Wow.
Very small.
Cole's is right here.
Okay.
You can't see it, obviously, because it's implanted.
Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah.
It's about that big, and the tubing runs around through his neck down to his abdomen to release the collected cerebrospinal fluid, so it's recirculated in his body. Ours does that normally, so it takes the fluid and sends it down to the abdomen, and then it recirculates. And the shunt problem is that it stops working, so the fluid builds up in the brain.
Wow. In describing this, you also said it's not only a medical issue, but an engineering. And I assume that's because of all of those things working together.
So you're looking at a plumbing issue in layman's terms, that the cerebrospinal fluid being built up in the brain is like having a backed up sink. The water is not draining properly. The stopper is on, and the sink is overflowing with water. Once it reaches the top and it overflows, that's your brain. The now fluid is now overtaking the brain, and estimations say between 12 to 15 hours later, that person will be dead if it's not treated, because the fluid would start shutting down body organs in the body, and eventually you would die. So it's really like a ticking time bomb.
Wow, that I did not realize.
And he went through this 12, the original surgery day one, and then 12 revisions because it failed. So we've been through this 12 times plus the original.
And just before I bring out Dr. Ayer, is those failures, did they happen like at an emergency level, like you had to rush him to the hospital?
Yes. Unfortunately for hydrocephalus, this is not something that happens at 2 p.m. This is a 2 a.m. thing in the middle of the night, 3-day weekend when your neurosurgeon's not on vacation, or during a holiday break besides the 3-day weekend. This is, we've never had a normal time where it was a normal time during the day. It was mostly at night or in the middle of the night or early morning, his surgeries. And it is an emergency. I think only one was proactive. All the rest were on a reactive basis because there was a problem.
And one more question before the doctor. The emergency, how are you aware that it's an emergency if it is 2 a.m.? Are you sleeping, in the same room with Cole, or?
Cole's first, well, we never sleep, but Cole's first emergency, he was about 6 weeks old. He had just he got his shunt on day one. He was about 6 weeks old. He was sleeping in his bassinet next to us. He was fine the whole day, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, he vomited. I didn't even think. I picked him up. I didn't wait for Michael. I got him. I got my purse. We got in the car. We went straight to the emergency room, and that was his first shunt infection and failure. And then he went on from there to have that year about 5 more surgeries that year.
So since that first time, Alan, we started sleeping with an emergency bag because I was awoken unprepared, and Kim took him and left. Thankfully, we got 2 cars, and I just got dressed and drove to the hospital, which was only not too far away from where we live, thankfully. And then ever since that first time, we had emergency go bags. So we were always ready in case, we needed to use them. And obviously over the 4 years, we had to use them a lot.
Wow. Well, I am praying that this continues on the path it has been. And God bless you both, Michael and Kim, for what you have done for Cole. Dr. Amit Ayer, whose clinical focus is neurosurgery, epilepsy, and stereotactic and functional neurosurgery at Stanford University. He is joining us today to share his insight and help us all learn more about the disease affecting children and seniors around the world. Please welcome to the locker room, Dr. Amit Ayer.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for being here, Doctor.
Cole. Hi.
Dr. Ayer.
Say hi.
Hey,
He's got a Chicago Cubs hat on, Dr. Ayer.
I love it.
That's great. Michael and Kim, I'm going to just mute you because I think there's, with his computer device, we might be getting feedback. Okay. So just let me know if you're looking to say something, but just so we can hear the doctor. Doctor, how did you first meet the Illions?
Well, the Illions family has been just great supporters of some of the research that we've been doing. We were lucky enough to get funded for one of our initial projects when we were first starting out in our research.
$50,000?
Yeah, well, 50,000 over time. Yeah, the first one was about 10,000, but that money really helped us start off. As they kind of mentioned, it's a little difficult finding funding for hydrocephalus related research, and particularly back then. So they really helped kickstart a lot of our research, and we're super thankful for everything they've done for us. Also, we were able to meet tons of people in the hydrocephalus community because of their efforts. The PHF is this incredible organization that's all over the country, and you meet so many people with so many powerful stories that can kind of really tell you about the day-to-day things that people with hydrocephalus face.
What led you down this road to study this type of medicine?
Well, as far as my interest in neurosurgery, I've always been interested in kind of the neurosciences, and you know, it's kind of the final frontier of research in some ways, because so much is misunderstood or not understood about the brain. And as far as hydrocephalus, my interest in hydrocephalus research was because of a patient, and he ultimately, I guess, became a friend of mine. He was like, he was 25 when I first met him. I was on my pediatrics rotation about 5 years ago, and he was one of the first people I took care of over at Lurie Children's Hospital. And when I first met him, he told me that he'd had 77 shunt malfunction surgeries, shunt revisions, over his 25-year-old life. And I thought that was just crazy. And then over the course of the year, when I worked over there, he had several more malfunctions, and we had to take him to surgery multiple times. We had to do ultimately implant his shunt into his gallbladder. And so we had to do some kind of crazy things to help this guy live just a normal life. And then other than his shunt, he's totally normal. So it's just this kind of ticking time bomb, just like Michael said, that really inspired me to think that there could be some other way. And I was lucky enough to find people in the engineering department at Northwestern who were really, really advanced and could contribute such incredible technology that we could kind of harmonize to work for hydrocephalus.
Wow. I mean, I forgot what word you just used, but ticking time bomb. I mean, it really is. I mean, the fact that they have a bag ready to go, that you don't know when this is going to happen, none of that. Also, you know, Terrell, I said, who's watching, had 31 surgeries, 77, 13 for Cole. How are people able to, you know, Kim and Michael, I mean, this isn't cheap either. You know, is this something insurance for people watching? You know, is that why it's important also to donate today and all of the above?
Yeah, there's a tremendous cost on families, and you know, all this data has been published. The amount of mileage families have to travel with hydrocephalus, that stuff isn't reimbursed by insurance companies. The time that people have to take away from work and spend in the hospital isn't reimbursed. So even if, you know, we do have some degree of insurance coverage, and even that on the adult side gets a little bit dicier when you have to fight with them for approvals for things. But there's a tremendous cost to the patient, to the family, to kind of anyone involved in their care.
Wow. And let's just, in layman's term, describe hydrocephalus. Pediatric hydrocephalus just means it's in a younger person. There isn't, or maybe I'll ask it differently. There isn't a difference, right? I mean, it's basically the same thing.
Mm-hmm. They have kind of different, sometimes they'll have different causes, just because in children and adults, they have kind of a little bit different physiology. But, you know, hydrocephalus is a very common condition. It affects over 1 million people in the United States. It's caused because of the excess production or impaired reabsorption of cerebrospinal fluid. Cerebrospinal fluid is made in little sacs in the brain called ventricles. And basically, when this fluid is unable to drain, just like Michael said, it's a plumbing issue. And because there's nowhere to drain, the pressure inside the head increases. And because it's locked in with that thick skull, the pressure becomes high, and then it can cause strokes or coma or even death if it's untreated. And while it can occur in all age groups, it particularly affects children. And some of the causes can include congenital malformations, intracerebral hemorrhage, which is related to prematurity, infections, trauma, and tumors as well.
With children, is it typically that they are diagnosed before birth, or, you know, because I would guess that an adult is just later in life, but for most children, is it before birth?
Everyone's different. With imaging now, you know, we can detect some cases a little bit earlier, prenatally as well. But you know, some kids develop it, you know, a little bit later. Sometimes brain tumors happen kind of 1 or 2 year old in children, and so you can kind of see it after, like in that kind of population. And so it's a little bit variable, but you know, kids are a little bit tough to kind of diagnose hydrocephalus, just like Kim said, because there's such a variability to how they present. So there's some common symptoms that people have with hydrocephalus, and those are things like headaches, nausea, drowsiness, altered personality, seizures, or altered breathing. But it can be something totally different. And in smaller kids and in infants whose skulls haven't finished fusing, early hydrocephalus can actually expand the head, and this can often be visible too. But with kids, because they're not able to tell us sometimes exactly how they're feeling, sometimes we have to rely on our parents because they're usually the best judge of something going wrong with their kid.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. So the only treatment right now is brain surgery and the shunt. And why is it that the shunt has the highest failure of any medical device? Is it yeah, I mean, I don't I'm curious, like what's the cause of that being such a fragile?
Yeah. Well, shunts have been around for nearly a century. And the premise of them is largely the same as kind of when they were first introduced. They're kind of surgically implanted tubes with a regulated valve, typically through a hole either here or in the back of the skull, where a tube kind of goes through there, and then it connects to a valve, which is usually behind the ear or on top of the head, and then a tubing is tunneled underneath the skin into a distal site like the belly or the lung or the gallbladder or something like that. And that is able to absorb that excess fluid when the valve detects a pressure differential, or some of them are flow regulated as well. So there's different kinds of valves and different ways in which they work. There's some other procedures that are used for hydrocephalus, like a ventriculostomy is also something that's used. But shunts are pretty much the most common procedure. And you know, they do suffer from extremely high failure rates, about 50% in 6 years in pediatric populations and about close to 20% in adults over 6 years. And so when they fail, they're, you know, exactly the symptoms of untreated hydrocephalus, which is deadly. And the reason for their failure is most commonly tissue plugs up the pores of the catheter inside the ventricle, because you're constantly secreting things, and particularly in patients who've had previous infections or previous hemorrhages or things which makes that fluid thicker, then that can have a preponderance of clot of kind of plugging up those pores at the tip of the catheter. And so that's a pretty common cause. Also, these things get older and the catheters can get harder and they can break. And that's another thing that we sometimes see. And then there's other kind of variants. So, you know, you can have cysts in your abdomen that impair the absorption from one side. So there's a lot of different kind of things that can cause it. There can be disconnections with the shunt. There can be technical errors and things like that too. And then you can have even infections which can cause it. So there's just a ton of different things that can be responsible for it.
In just hearing, you know, Michael and Kim talk about it and reading about it, you know, I'm thinking it's device failure, but it's really sort of also our bodies, you know, so there's so much else going on around the shunt that, you know, can contribute to it. It's not just a device like a pacemaker, which, you know, it usually lasts, you know.
Exactly. It's kind of it's being used quite a bit constantly, right? So, and there's certain new shunts that are under development, but we'll kind of have to wait and see how the data goes. Surgeons are a little bit reticent, or you know, about implanting new devices into people that they haven't tried. At least we kind of know how the current shunts work and kind of what failure's like. And so that's why some of us don't really try to jump to new technology right away. And there's a pretty long approval process for things that you implant in the body as well.
Well, that makes sense. But you've created a wearable shunt monitor that, if I'm not mistaken, has been in development for 2 years and is ready for clinical trials in Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago before heading over to the FDA. Can you explain why, once this device is approved, it would benefit the hydrocephalus community?
Yeah. So yeah, actually, we've been working on this for about 5 years now. But over the 2 years, we've kind of accelerated a little bit. But I was very fortunate to see a talk by Professor John Rogers, who kind of went over to Northwestern about 5 years ago. And he's an incredible engineer, and he's developed all these incredible bioelectronic devices. And myself, my colleague, Dr. Matthew Potts, and Dr. Siddharth Krishnan, all together with Professor Rogers, we saw a talk that he gave that demonstrated how these sensors could detect flow in near surface blood vessels. And we thought that that could be used for the same silicon tubing that's just underneath the skin for shunts. And, at that time, I was on my rotation at the Children's Hospital, and every time a patient comes in for a shunt malfunction workup, you get a CT scan oftentimes, right? And a CT scan can expose children to radiation. You sometimes have to do an invasive test like a shunt tap, where you have to actually put a needle into the shunt, and that's not very pleasant for the patient. And or you might have to explore the shunt if their patient seems like they're having a shunt malfunction, but you don't have evidence. Oftentimes you'll just go in and check it out, right? Which is a surgery, and that could be unnecessary. And so there's a lot of uncertainty just around this whole diagnosis. And so we thought we could use this sensor device to see if we could create a non-invasive way to detect shunt malfunction. And so when we changed some of the mechanics of his sensor, and then we started a study at Northwestern with this rudimentary device, and ultimately we progressed to create a Band-Aid-like sensor that can wirelessly talk to a phone. And so the idea is we can non-invasively detect shunt malfunction, or even find ideal flow rates in people with hydrocephalus, and ultimately be able to do it in a remote way. With COVID, people have been pretty scared to come into the emergency department. And if we could find a way to safely and effectively give patients a little bit more power, we could reduce the uncertainty faced by patients and their families. And, because when something goes wrong, the first question people with hydrocephalus and their families usually have is it the shunt? And it's a very valid question.
And they can read about it right there. I mean, talk about, you used the word non-invasive. I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's so much invasiveness with hydrocephalus for the kids that, if you can avoid it with the monitor, I hope that gets approved. I mean, that's, sounds like it will give parents a lot of relief.
Yeah, we're hopeful. It'll be really helpful for parents and families and patients as well. So we're really thankful for all the support from Michael and Kim and Cole and the entire PHF. They've been really invaluable to what we've been doing. Our CEO, Annalisa Samara, of the company that we started, Rios, has been coordinating multi-center trial sites for later this year. So hopefully we'll be ready to go and perform a pretty good study so that we can get good data and come out with a very nice, safe, effective device that can be really useful for patients and their families.
That's amazing. I wish you the best of luck with that. Before I let you go, I mean, U.S. Representative Gabby Giffords also has a shunt because of the shooting. Is that correct? It's very similar, but it's a result for her because of what happened with the...
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, she had Representative Gifford's story is incredible. After her gunshot wound, she had what's called a decompressive hemicraniectomy. So a part of her skull was taken off. And at that time, they also placed a ventricular drain, so a drain that went into the ventricles that could, both of those measures, decrease the pressure in her head. But unfortunately, when you take the skull off, just as Michael said, the circulation, the plumbing is off. And so by disturbing those normal CSF circulation pathways, then you can develop hydrocephalus. So I think they tried to wean the ventricular drain from her, and they realized that she wasn't tolerating that. So she needed something to kind of be able to take off that excess fluid. And so they put in the shunt, and I mean, she's just done remarkably well. And she's a real inspiration. Her recovery is just fantastic.
Wow. Thank you, doctor, so much for being here. Is there anything else we didn't discuss? Michael, Kim?
Well, it's great to see him. We only get to see him once a year. And with COVID, we haven't seen him in a couple of years now. Kim went there last January of 2020 to present the check for their latest research funding. So she got to see him. But Dr. Ayer is doing a great job. This is something that is so needed to the community. As been mentioned, in the segment, anything to keep invasive procedures away from our children is a godsend. And with radiation,
and let you sleep a little.
and let us sleep a little bit, right? Do some from home.
Yeah.
The radiation from X-rays, CAT scans, and then the invasiveness of an MRI for kids with shunts, with magnetic shunts. They have to be put under, most of them, and then they have to have the shunt adjusted after they come out. So it's a whole rigmarole. In addition to just having the MRI, the kid's shunt has to be adjusted after, so they don't have any problems because the MRI changes the setting. So thank you, Dr. Ayer, and your team. I hope continue the great work, and I hope that it leads to being out on the market for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all of your support, and hopefully once this pandemic's over, I can come see you guys again.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Thanks, doctor.
Take care.
Of course.
Take care. Wow, amazing.
Amazing.
Joining us next is 4-year-old Clara Shanks and her mother Heather from Michigan. At 4 years old, Clara has already one surgery under her belt as she and her family navigate their way through hydrocephalus. Please welcome Heather and Clara Shanks. Hi.
Hey.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
You're so welcome.
He's having a snack. Sorry.
You're still eating.
I'll have can I have some? So Heather, your story is similar to Cole's in the sense that you found out during pregnancy as well, correct?
Yes, I actually went to my gender exam with two of my best friends and didn't get to get what we wanted. Sorry, I get choked up.
Sorry.
Yeah, we found out though, about 20 weeks pregnant. It was tough. We went to a specialist and all we would pray for is to keep her fluid numbers under 10 because that would be considered in a normal realm. And I'll never forget the nurse coming in and saying they were already at 21 and 25. And it's hard to say out loud.
Now, was that while you were pregnant, those numbers?
Mm-hmm. I was only about 24 weeks pregnant and it was tough to hear that because everything I read online,
So they want to keep those numbers around what?
Under 10.
Under 10. Do you, Kim, do you know what your numbers were?
Oh, yeah. The day that we found out Cole had hydrocephalus, 18 weeks pregnant, and Cole's ventricles were about 16 millimeters. So it was already over the 10. And he was born at 37 weeks. And then when he was born, they were about 35, 36 millimeters. So almost 4 times the size that they should be.
Yeah, when Clara was at 37, she had 50 on one side and 60 on the other. They could barely see any brain tissue, and
are you laughing?
It was tough. It was tough. We had a big delivery room. It was early, and we were really ready to donate her organs.
Wow.
Are you laughing?
And then she comes out like this, though.
Did they, let's not, because she's right there, but you just mentioned the donation part. Did the doctors, just for other parents watching today, did the doctors warn you that was a possibility?
It was not good. And that's a big reason why I became a part of the PHF because, when finding out, all I see was negative. And I go to these doctors and specialists, and their number one option is termination. And I'll never forget 27 years pregnant. I went to an appointment and I was leaving, and the doctor gave me all this paperwork. And I was like, well, what's this for? And she said, if you change your mind, you can come 34 weeks in a certain state. And I was like appalled. And I'm not going to lie to you, I didn't consider it because the stuff they tell you, Hold on.
Well, that's, what Kim and Michael were saying. Clara was born many years after Cole.
Yeah.
So I assume the foundation was already around when she was born.
Yes, I actually found them by Googling somebody local with this, and I found Jason and Carmen Adams, who Jason is also a director for the PHF. And I was so excited to find someone local because I'm in a very rural area. And we worked together, and they gave me that glimpse of hope and reality that, you know, if she isn't born perfect, that's someone else's point, not mine, right? Our babies are perfect to us, and that's all that matters.
So are you in a rural area now?
Oh yeah, I drive 2.5 hours one way to see her specialist. It's a hike, but they believed in her when I was pregnant, and they supported my decision, and they're an awesome team. Clara has a lot of secondary diagnoses, which is common with hydrocephalus.
Mom,
She has cerebral palsy, she has epilepsy, she
can I
is,
ask you something?
yes,
I'm almost done talking.
almost. Did you hear that? So we have a good team there. So we do drive a ways, but like Kim said, it's scary to think of a shunt malfunction. One of her scariest ones for me was they airlifted her out of our local hospital because we couldn't figure out what was going on. It ended up being a grand mal seizure, and she had never had one before. So at first they were like, her shunt's gone, it's done, and they had to get her quick because she wasn't responding. Pupils weren't dilating. I mean, it was scary, and they flight cared her, and I had to drive. So she got there in 20 minutes, and I took 2.5 hours, and it was just, I don't know, it's gut-wrenching as a parent.
Do you have to watch her like they watch Cole, in the sense of making sure it's always
Mom,
working?
I want to be all done talking.
Yeah, that's like the curse of hydro, isn't it? I'm like that crazy helicopter mom. Yeah, go ahead. It's not going to fail. And like Mike said, hold on, Clara has a programmable shunt. So we have to be very careful around magnets, and even some products, like some cell phones.
What would happen if a cell phone turned it off? Are you able to turn it back on?
No, it'd be an emergency visit for sure. It would be a slow progression of shunt malfunction, of vomiting and lethargic and really tired and irritable. It's something like Kim and I, moms have to really be on the go for it. No offense, Mike, I know you're watching too, but that mommy got it where it's at with this. I mean, we just have to trust ourselves, which is hard because sometimes doctors don't believe us, and it's frustrating, but that's when the mom Hulk comes out, I call it.
Yeah, I can only imagine. But you know, you're telling me that you're in a rural area. What if an emergency happens? Is she airlifted? Is that what would have to happen?
The only option. I'm really lucky. That's an amazing area, though. Our local fire department. 1 minute, please. Okay. Our local fire department and our ER, they all have emergency plans for Clara. They know Clara. Our entire community knows her, so they're very vigilant with her. They're aware of our surroundings. Her school is amazing about keeping magnets away, which is almost nearly impossible in the school. But yeah, we'd have to go all the way to U of M, which is a 2.5 hour ride for me, and I'm not allowed to go in the copter. Soon.
Wow. Why is that? Just a random.
It's a weight thing because with pediatric, there's usually a pilot, 2 nurses, and then Clara. So since one of the nurses would have to stay back, and that's not something they would do.
And she's 4 now. Her surgery was at what age?
She got her first brain surgery at 2 days old, and her first haircut. So as a hydro mom, that first fun haircut, that you get to take your kids to. Her neurosurgeon did her first haircut at 2 days old and put her shunt in. I actually brought a shunt for you. It took me until last month to hold this in my hand because I love it, but I hate it. But Clara's is right here on her head. This part goes in her brain, straight down, and then the tubing goes behind her ear, and it goes all the way to her belly, where she has about this much extra. They coil the extra like this, so that the hope is as she grows and gets taller, it'll slowly kind of grow with her. So sometimes, though, it kinks. And that's what the doctor was talking about. It can kink, it can twist. And if you look really close, so you see the holes? That's where he was talking about tissue.
Oh, yeah.
In. So brain tissue can actually get stuck in there and clog these. So we have a local hydro individual. Her name's Mary. She's had 150 brain surgeries.
Oh my God.
Clogging, yeah. She's kind of one of my idols around here. She's only 20, maybe 21 now. I'm getting old. But she donates her shunts to the PHF research down at Wayne State University. And then this is the valve the doctor was talking about that controls how fast or how slow the fluid goes.
Wow. I mean, no child should have one surgery compared to 13 or 77 or 100 or anything like that at all.
Yeah.
So I understand it being inserted in the brain. How do they get it all the way down? They just guide
it. So Clara's neurosurgeon, when he was here, it came out on accident. So she has a little scar right here. But he said he just cleaned it as he could and he put it back in and they just guide it through. It's so scary to think.
I mean, God bless medical science, though.
Mm-hmm.
You have beautiful children. You know what I mean? God bless medical science. I mean, it really is amazing. But I can only imagine the cost of all of this. And I really hope people, watching will donate. And Michael, seriously, thank you for reaching out. But let's talk about the, important stuff. When did you become a soap fan?
I've been a soap fan all my life. When I was going to elementary school and come home for lunch or after school, my mom would watch the Channel 7 soaps, which back then was Ryan's Hope and Into All My Children, One Life to Live, General Hospital, and The Edge of Forever, which is an old one. And that's
Edge of Night.
Edge of Night, right? Edge of Night. Yeah. That's been gone for a while. I was thinking Edge of Night, and then I was always, and after that, I was always a GH fan. And coincidentally, there is a hydrocephalus connection to General Hospital. The great character Robert Scorpio, played by the great Tristan Rogers, was in a storyline back when GH had the nighttime show Night Shift. In the second season, Robert Scorpio, the character, was in a helicopter crash or plane crash, and because of the traumatic brain injury, acquired hydrocephalus. And Dr. Drake, Noah Drake's son, Patrick, put in a shunt. He didn't call it a shunt, but he said he had he put in a shunt and it never mentioned hydrocephalus. But and then
Dr. Noah Drake is Rick Springfield. I don't know who played his son, right?
Am I right? You are. Noah Drake was Rick Springfield.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I did, as I did try to get Tristan to join us today. He was really surprised and he wanted to be here, but he was working. But he did send this along. So.
Or the Pediatric Hydrocephalus Foundation. For any General Hospital fans who are watching right now, Scorpio had a similar surgery to what Cole and Clara are having to remove the buildup of fluid on the brain. I do believe this was in a series called Night Shift. It was a spin-off of General Hospital. Please consider making a donation to the Pediatric Hydrocephalus Foundation to help raise funds for research and to help find a cure and get better treatment options for hydrocephalus. I thank you very much.
Okay, so now I'm going to cry.
I'll send that to you so you can have it because he did say hi. I don't know if you could hear it, but it was hi Cole and Clara.
Oh, great!
He did say at the beginning. What you guys have been through. You seem like you have kept it together, because it cannot be easy, watching your children suffer,
And this is why I can speak for Heather as well and Kim, that this was therapeutic for us. This is something we have to do, because if we didn't do it, nobody else would do it, and nobody else was doing it. And the PHF has allowed parents like Heather to get involved and support research, which is our mission. Mission statement is to fund research projects to help us and help people like Dr. Ayer and Dr. Harris, which Heather alluded to, the Wayne State University research project. We're funding about 7 to 8 research projects right now around the country. And the money we give Dr. Ayer, I wanted to tell this quick story, $50,000 over 3 years, 10, 20, and 20. But that money, little that it is, allowed Dr. Ayer to reach a point in his research to go and compete in a contest, and he won the shunt flow, and he got a grant for like $300,000 because of it. So our $50,000 seed money allowed him to get a $300,000 grant to continue his research. So every little bit helped. You see the donate name on the bottom here. Please go to the PHF organization, hydrokids.org. There is a donate icon on the right-hand side. Our money goes towards one thing, research. Clara and Cole, a total of 14 brain surgeries. They are 19 years old total in age. Dozens and dozens of invasive CAT scans, X-rays, and MRIs. Countless and amount known of hours of pain and suffering from issues related to hydrocephalus. Help us save their lives and other children like them by finding a cure for hydrocephalus by making that donation. 5, 10, whatever it is, every dollar helps us fund
Correct.
the project.
I mean, like I said, one surgery is one too many. And, Cole at having 13, Terrell having 31, Dr. Ayer mentioned somebody 77, Heather mentioned somebody over 100. That nobody should, have to experience that at all. Really, thank you for sharing this with us, all of you. I was going to ask Clara some questions, but I don't know if Clara's.
Say hi.
Clara, can you tell everybody what you have in your head?
Shunt. Can you tell? Can you tell?
Yeah, she doesn't have to.
Shunt.
Go to the Locker Room Facebook page, and there's a great video from Heather that I shared from the Pediatric Hydrocephalus page.
Thank you.
I just hearing it, out of her mouth, is perfect. I wish both of them continued, on the right road. No more surgeries.
Thank you.
No more.
And we have to thank you for doing this for us.
You're very welcome.
Time.
Let's keep in touch, because maybe we can do something in September for what you said.
That would be great. Thank you.
I would definitely, we can definitely try to get a group of daytime actors together and try to raise some
Thank you.
awareness.
I want to thank you for introducing hydrocephalus and our families to my fellow soap opera fans. A whole new group of people to raise awareness of hydrocephalus. I don't hope we do, but I'm sure we're going to run into somebody that's watching this in the soap opera world that has a connection to hydrocephalus. So please reach out to us and let us know who you are. And thank you again for this opportunity, Alan.
You're so welcome. Stay well, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Heather, Clara.
Bye, Heather and Clara. Bye, guys. Thanks again. Please donate to hydrokids.org. $1, $5, $10, whatever you can. It will go a long way to research and finding a cure. No kid should suffer the way Cole and Clara have to at all. Have a great day, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow.